The graduation address gives us an opportunity to hear from a distinguished member of our alumni community, and we're indeed fortunate today that the address will be delivered by Ms. Sophie Fenton. Ms. Fenton is a dedicated teacher with over 25 years' experience, an education innovator and a pioneer of the industry. She commenced her career as a university lecturer and then moved into the secondary school sector. Ms. Fenton has been at the forefront of education innovation in curriculum and teaching practice design and staff development. She developed her philosophy of the ideal school that aims to educate young people to become proactive members of the community and positive contributors to the world. She turned this passion into reality by co-founding the Sandridge School, Luminaire Academy and Luminara Guild. I now have much pleasure in inviting Ms. Sophie Fenton to deliver the graduation address.
Deputy Chancellor Mr. Blaisher, Pro-Vice-Chancellor Professor Kopolov, Dean of Education Professor Loughran, members of the faculty, and most especially to you, today's graduates, your family and friends. It is a great privilege and an honour to be invited to address you today in this graduation ceremony. It's exciting to have the opportunity to talk to you, my fellow educators. And it's interesting as I sit here looking at all of you, the warmth of your smiles, the way that you have looked after each other and cheered each other on throughout this ceremony. And I think to myself, you are going to be amazing educators. You care about each other and you will care about your students. And I was thinking to myself, teachers are people. And it seemed to make sense for the theme that I wanted to talk to you about today. Now, I have been up on this stage a couple of times as a graduate like you. Today, I am up behind the podium, a different perspective. We live in interesting times, it has been said before, and it remains ever true today. Not a day goes by without some kind of reference to the increasingly pervasive impact of the Internet of Things. There's a lot of talk about the conundrum of living in a digital age. Government, industry and enterprise, education are all grappling with the shared question as they strategically reorientate for a world where automation is replacing manual tasks and artificial intelligence will emerge as mainstream in society, and much sooner than we think. The focus of today's grappling rests largely on the question of how to understand and work in this digital world. But for me, that is not the right question. The irony is that as our environment becomes increasingly shaped by technology today and singularity looms on the horizon of tomorrow, what it is to be human will become more important than ever. So for me, the real question is, what is it to be human in this world of smartphones and talking homes? We have historically been naive consumers of technology. About a century ago, mass market engagement began with the enthusiastic adoption of electricity and motorised transport without really questioning their impact. And we have eagerly embraced every gadget ever since. The recent investigations into and debates about the American democratic process during the 2016 election have made us aware that we can be manipulated by information delivered through technology. But this is not the first time that we have been led astray as social collectives by tools. Algorithms are ancient instruments, and propaganda, today rebadged as fake news, is nothing new. Established governments, revolutionaries, terrorists have all used these tools to manipulate us in the past. Google and social media platforms like Facebook are simply the latest agencies to use and get caught using these tools to manipulate us today. Yes, we live in interesting times. Google's recent release of the AI bot booking a haircut was a little disturbing, to say the least. Japan last year celebrated the launch of a hotel that is entirely staffed by robots. As people celebrated the innovation, I felt the loss of a warm smile and the comforting human touch of skin on skin that comes with a handshake as a person welcomes you at the desk. Unsettling times, challenging times. But for me, these are exciting times too. Why? Because the world is at the process of rapid transformation. And as educators, we have the opportunity to play a pivotal role in the direction of that change. Yes, we live in a world where technology defines the terrain. But who currently builds that technology? We do. So, we have a say. No, we actually determine how the world of the future looks, right here and right now. As the social collective recovers from the shock of discovery that we have recently been played by the system, an incredible opportunity is presented. For we can use this realisation to wrest back control of ethics and build new systems. For starters, we can build social platforms that are inclusive, ethical, transparent, and equitable. And who are the builders of these tools for tomorrow? The students of today. And this is where you come in. For it is through an awareness of the reality that we live in a world that is a constructed environment that we are actually best positioned to not only meet the challenges posed by the world of drones and talking homes, but to use them for benefit. If we understand that we live in a construct, then we can become the masters of it rather than its slaves. Our students need skills. They need to understand systems. They need to understand how to think. They need to know how to invent and to deliver on invention. But more importantly, they need to know what it is to be human. For it is through a cognizance of our humanity that we can best thrive in and create for the world of AI and robots. There is something inherently precious in our humanness. I was recently feeling a bit down, and a friend gave me a hug full of care and compassion. As the hug surrounded me and held me up, I could physically feel the sadness melt away and the comfort take hold. Amazon's Alexa or Google Assistant can't do that for us humans. Education plays a crucial role in developing that realisation and the capacity to act amongst us people. As informed consumers, we are less likely to fall prey to the potential pitfalls of manipulation. As informed developers, creators, inventors, we are more likely to create tools that affect positive social impact and build infrastructure that enhances human experience rather than diminishing it, as is typically the case with tools today like the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Twitters, always putting pressure on us to be something we're not. These are the really big issues, challenges, questions. Do you know where the answers lie? They lie in us. My response to this challenge, where did I find some answers? Well, I co-founded a school that directly addresses this issue of human-centred education that is realised through design and production. I contributed to this school creation with a philosophy that the aim of schooling is to educate young people to become aware and then proactive members of the community who are deliberate and positive contributors to the world, very much like the ethos of Monash University. The school prioritises connectedness, being human, acting communally, and has a focus on positive citizenship and developing an ethical entrepreneurial mindset. It is based on an authentic learning environment that puts ideas into action. But this is just one example. Each of you is a microcosm of change agency, a resource for equipping our students to be the builders of tomorrow's world today. The answers to these questions, these issues, lie with you, in your classroom, in how you teach your students to be. You as educators are uniquely positioned to best address today's challenge. Think for a moment, reflect on your practice. How are you shaping society through your teaching? How are you equipping your students with an awareness of what it is to be human and how to make a positive contribution to the world they live in? Is it through building student capacity to be learners of skills like critical thinking rather than content? Is it through creating lessons characterised by innovation, agility, or collaboration? Is it through enabling your students to develop empathy and social awareness? Where students are equipped with these skills, they will be a generation of innovators who are not only surviving in the realm of robots, but are actually contributing to improving the state of the world. Yes, the answers to today's conundrum lie in you. This is a watershed moment, and you are at the cusp of it. Teach your students what it is to be human. Equip them with the awareness, the self-belief, the valuing of what it is to be human in this world of AI and VR. These tools have the potential to enhance our lives or to diminish them, and it's a choice. Be clear about this, it is a choice. Educate the next generation of designers and creators to develop tools to enhance, not to diminish. So, if it is important to teach your students to be human, what kind of human might you invite them to be? In this world of drones and smartphones, it seems fitting to quote from a tech giant, Jeff Bezos, who tells us that everything you are comes from your choices. Let's consider 4. Within the beating drum of Fourth Industrial Revolution discussion, 2 constant themes resonate: creativity and innovation. Human beings have the unique capacity to imagine. They can visualise that which is not. Through their imagination, they have the ability to be masters of their fate, not slaves to technology. They have within them the foundations for invention and creation. All animals have the ability to learn, but humans have a superiority unmatched in the animal kingdom. This capacity has allowed us to create new worlds, new systems, new ways of being. There are students who, for one reason or another, do not exercise the innovative capacity at all. They stay safely within the confines of their own experience, not venturing out to imagine another kind of self, other kinds of world, other kinds of existence. They do not question who they are, how the world is, or how it can be. So, the first invitation you might present to your students: choose to imagine, and through that imagination, choose to create. In his renowned commencement speech of 2013, David Foster Wallace used the examples of being stuck in the slow queue in the supermarket or in a traffic jam to invite us to contemplate how we choose to see the world. You can get bothered by it, or you can take the opportunity to notice the small things, to see the humans around you and the experiences they are having, what shapes them, how to connect with them. Learning is now very much focused on social capacity as much as on cognitive development, learning how to manage emotions, make better choices, have better relationships, learning to be aware. This is a true value of education. It equips you, empowers you to consciously decide what has meaning and what doesn't. In this commencement speech, Foster Wallace tells a story. There were these 2 young fish swimming along, and they happened to meet an older fish swimming the other direction, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the 2 young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over to the other and says, "What is water?" I would always say to my students, if they groaned under the weight of having to think and connect, that the kind of education they receive in a country like Australia is an enormous privilege, for here they learn how to be aware. With digital twins on the side of tomorrow, a consciousness of being human will be essential if we are to avoid the fate of those languishing obliviously on Mothership, the Starline Axiom in Wall-E. This quality, the real benefit of education, has almost nothing to do with content or tests or results. Its value lies in the development of cognizance, an understanding of what is so fundamental, so ubiquitous, that it typically goes unnoticed unless we draw attention to it. As educators, we can remind our students always, the way you perceive and react to this world is a choice. Or as Foster Wallace would say, this is water. This is water. So the second invitation you might present to your students, invite them to choose to see the world through the lenses of empathy, optimism, and solution focus. Choose to see. As humans, we learn best by doing, so invite your students to take action. Every development that has occurred, relationship that has formed, invention that has been launched is a result of taking action. Remind your students that what starts in them changes the world. So, when they take action, let it be inclusive, optimistic, productive, meaningful. Teach your students that they have a choice. They can either be passive recipient of what life throws at them, or they can be the active driver of their own experience. The third invitation, choose to live life, don't just exist. A famous student of failure, J.K. Rowling, has said, failure is not fun, it can be awful. But living so cautiously that you never fail is worse. If your students are to learn, then they need to take risks along the way. Encourage them to have a greater desire to discover than to avoid making a mistake. In fact, their biggest risk isn't failing, it's getting too comfortable. When your students feel the fear of being unsure, help them to view this feeling as a trigger for curiosity. So, the fourth invitation, choose to be adventurous, take risks, explore, create, bring change. In 2014, I returned to Monash to do a Masters in School Leadership. The first assignment was to develop a platform for my ideal school. As I finished the last sentence, I thought to myself, this can be done. It was the hardest thing I have ever done in my professional life. In fact, if I had known how hard it was going to be, I might not have done it. So I am glad that I didn't know, because models that tangibly demonstrate new forms of thinking about education at a curriculum, pedagogy, and system level are needed. There's a lot of responsibility in being an educator, as I've just outlined, but I think that this is the most incredible time to be an educator, for we are at the precipice of a genuine epoch transition, the tipping point for how society goes forward. And you as educators can be, no, you will be, instrumental in shaping the very nature of our future society by equipping our kids to be cognizant, intentional, and ethical creators of their world, our world, the world that we all live in. Heidegger developed the concept of sociopoiesis, the notion that we are beings in the world who live always toward our own becoming. You are the ones who write your story. Close your eyes right now. Come on. See yourself. What kind of teacher are you? What kind of impact are you going to have on the lives of your students? What invitations will you provide? What choices will you invite them to consider? How will you use education to make a difference in the world? In closing, for me, the fundamental value of education is to equip people with the skills and knowledge to build a better society. Education is a human endeavour. Educated at its best is communal. For education to penetrate and have lasting impact, it must be authentic. Schooling is not a practice for the real thing. It is an internship for entrepreneurial thinkers and social impact change agents in the here and now. What a privilege it is to be a teacher. Thank you.